Imagine being told for an entire century that there's no hope for your lungs, that once the delicate tissue inside them is destroyed, nothing can bring it back. For 100 years, medicine had a single answer for emphysema. I'm sorry, the tissue is gone. You'll have to learn to live with less. And for generations, that was the truth. But in 2024, everything shifted. I'm Dr. Becker, and what I'm about to share isn't theory, hype, or a clinic's empty promise. This is science, published in one of the world's most respected journals, and it challenges everything we thought we knew about whether human lungs can repair themselves. Let's start with a number. 15% of adults over 40 in the United States have some degree of obstructive lung limitation. Emphysema, the form of lung damage that destroys alveoli, the tiny air sacs where oxygen enters the blood, affects millions. Millions who struggle to climb a single flight of stairs, who reach the garden and have to sit halfway through, who gave up hobbies they loved because their lungs couldn't keep up. If that resonates with you, this video is exactly what you need. Today, I'm walking you through 3 crucial areas: the breakthrough scientific discovery that challenges centuries of assumptions, the biological mechanisms that explain why emphysema progresses even after someone quits smoking, and finally, a practical, evidence-based protocol you can start today while the science of lung repair continues to advance. In September 2023, at the European Respiratory Society International Congress in Shanghai, a team from Tongji University presented findings nobody expected. Dr. Wade Zuo and his team followed 20 patients with moderate to severe chronic obstructive pulmonary disease for 24 weeks. Each patient received a transplant of their own lung progenitor cells, specifically P63 positive cells, the type of cells responsible for repairing lung tissue. And what they discovered stunned the audience. 2 patients, the ones with the mildest emphysema, showed something previously thought impossible. Follow-up CT scans revealed that the destroyed lung tissue was gone. Completely gone. Not smaller, not reduced, vanished. The full study, published in Science Translational Medicine in 2024, showed even more remarkable results. In the treated group, diffusing capacity, the efficiency of oxygen transfer from lungs to blood, increased by 18.2%, while the control group's capacity fell by 17.4%. That's a nearly 3.6-point difference. Walking distance in 6 minutes, a key measure of real-world lung function, improved by over 30 meters on average. Quality of life scores rose by 7 points, above the threshold researchers consider genuinely meaningful. And all of this occurred without a single serious adverse event. I want to be honest. This was a phase I trial, meaning the primary goal was safety, not definitive proof of efficacy. With only 28 participants and 3 in the control group, the numbers are small. The study was open-label, not double-blinded. Phase 2 and 3 trials with larger groups are needed to confirm these results. But the critical takeaway is this. For the first time, human lungs' resident progenitor cells were shown capable of initiating repair in a way medicine once thought biologically impossible. The question is no longer, can lungs regenerate, but rather, when, in whom, and under what conditions. To understand why this discovery matters, and why the practical protocol I'll share works, you need to understand what's happening inside the emphysematic lung at a cellular level. The healthy lung is extraordinary. It contains about 500 million alveoli. Each breath expands these tiny sacs to absorb oxygen and release carbon dioxide. The alveolar walls are only 1 cell thick, allowing gases to pass efficiently into the bloodstream, like an ultrafine coffee filter. When those walls tear, the system collapses. In emphysema, the alveoli are destroyed, and the consequences aren't just felt, they're measurable. A common misconception is that lung destruction stops when someone quits smoking. That's not entirely true. Cigarette smoke and environmental pollutants activate immune cells called macrophages and neutrophils. These cells, designed to protect the lungs, release enzymes called proteases, MMP9, MMP12, and neutrophil elastase that degrade lung tissue. Normally, inhibitory proteins keep them in check, but chronic inflammation tips the balance. Proteases win, breaking down collagen and elastin, causing alveoli to collapse and merge into large, inefficient air spaces. Even years after quitting, inflammation can continue to self-perpetuate, driven by the central inflammatory pathway NF-κB. Smoke may have started the fire, but the fire can burn on its own. For people over 50, there's another layer to this story. After that age, glutathione, your cell's primary antioxidant, naturally declines. Glutathione neutralizes the free radicals produced by chronic inflammation, protecting lung tissue from ongoing damage. As levels drop, the lung's defense weakens, so the same inflammatory triggers that a 30-year-old might withstand cause far more destruction in someone older. This explains why emphysema can continue to progress long after quitting smoking. The fire has already been lit, and without adequate defense, it keeps smoldering. The good news? This process is modifiable. With the right interventions, the inflammation can be dampened and the lung's natural defense is strengthened. But inflammation is only part of the story. The second critical mechanism involves the lung's own repair system, the p63 positive basal cells, a population of progenitor cells residing in the bronchial epithelium. For decades, these cells were overlooked. They aren't stem cells from elsewhere, they've lived in your lungs your whole life, quietly waiting for a strong enough signal to repair damaged tissue. Under acute injury, they migrate toward destroyed alveoli and differentiate into alveolar epithelial cells, essentially rebuilding the tiny walls necessary for oxygen exchange. In chronic emphysema, there are two problems. First, there aren't enough of these cells to keep up with tissue destruction, and second, their capacity to divide and repair declines with age and cumulative damage. This is where Dr. Zhuo's team innovated. Using bronchoscopy, they harvested patients' own p63 positive cells, cultured them in the lab for 3 to 5 weeks to expand their numbers exponentially from hundreds of thousands to over 1 billion, and then reintroduce them directly into the affected airways. Think of it as taking the lung's internal construction crew, training and multiplying them, and sending them back in sufficient numbers to rebuild what had been lost. The study revealed something remarkable. The patients who improved most had higher expression of the p63 marker in the transplanted cells. In other words, the quality of the repair cells mattered just as much as the quantity. This insight carries a critical implication. Intervening earlier, when these progenitor cells are still robust, maximizes the potential benefit. The third mechanism explains a problem that most patients feel but few understand, the air trap. As alveolar walls collapse, they no longer support the small airways around them. Normally, alveoli act as an elastic harness, keeping these tiny tubes open during exhalation. Without that support, air gets trapped. The lung fills with stale air, the diaphragm flattens, and breathing becomes a constant struggle. The accessory muscles of the chest and neck compensate, turning even simple activities into exhausting efforts. Paradoxically, patients feel they cannot breathe, even though there's too much air in their lungs. The encouraging news is that this is partially reversible. Specific breathing and muscle training techniques can retrain the diaphragm, optimize mechanics, and improve functional capacity even before any actual anatomical repair occurs. Studies support this. A 2025 meta-analysis in eClinical Medicine, reviewing 337 randomized controlled trials with over 18,000 participants, found that supervised aerobic training combined with inspiratory muscle exercises significantly improved exercise capacity, quality of life, and breathlessness in severe emphysema patients. These are moderate to high-level evidence results. Pulmonary rehabilitation doesn't just make patients feel better, it measurably improves their lives. There's a fourth mechanism, less widely discussed but equally important, the gut-lung axis. Your gut microbiome communicates constantly with your lungs through the immune system. Bacteria in your intestines ferment dietary fiber into short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, propionate, and acetate, which reduce inflammation in the lungs by regulating immune signaling. High-fiber diets, shown in both animal and human studies, can attenuate emphysema progression by this mechanism. Gut dysbiosis, which becomes more common after 50, correlates with worse systemic inflammation and more severe respiratory symptoms. In practical terms, what you eat directly influences the inflammatory conversation inside your lungs. Now that you understand the mechanisms, self-perpetuating inflammation, weakened antioxidant defenses, p63 progenitor cells, the air trap, and the gut-lung axis, you can see why a strategic protocol matters. Each of these systems can be addressed with interventions available today, even before advanced therapies like P63 transplants are widely accessible. The foundation of effective action is understanding these mechanisms, because only then can the right lifestyle, rehabilitation, and nutritional strategies be applied. So, what can you do today, right now, even before advanced treatments like P63 cell therapy become available? The protocol I'm about to explain has 5 priorities, each backed by solid, peer-reviewed evidence. The first and most impactful is formal, supervised pulmonary rehabilitation. This is not casual walking or generic exercise. Pulmonary rehab is designed for your specific lung capacity and guided by trained professionals. Why is this so crucial? Because the American Thoracic Society ranks it as the single most effective intervention for quality of life in stable COPD patients, supported by meta-analysis data from nearly 19,000 participants. A complete pulmonary rehab program includes 3 core elements. First, progressive aerobic training, such as supervised walking or stationary cycling, starting at 60 to 70% of your maximum tolerated capacity, gradually increasing over time. Second, strength training for your extremities, which combats muscle loss affecting up to 60% of severe COPD patients. Third, inspiratory muscle training, using a resistance device that makes you inhale against adjustable pressure. Studies from 2024 show this increases maximal inspiratory pressure by an average of 14 centimeters of water, directly reducing the sensation of breathlessness. Alongside these exercises, there are 2 essential breathing techniques you should learn immediately. The first is pursed lip breathing. Inhale slowly through the nose for 2 seconds, then exhale through pursed lips for 4 seconds, like blowing out a candle. This simple technique prevents small airways from collapsing during exhalation, effectively countering the air trap. The second is diaphragmatic breathing, which retrains the flattened diaphragm to do the work it's meant to do, reducing reliance on accessory muscles. Practically, within 2 to 4 weeks, most patients notice a reduction in breathlessness during routine activities. By 4 to 8 weeks, 6-minute walking distance improves by 30 to 60 meters, and by 8 to 12 weeks, quality of life scores often exceed the clinically meaningful threshold. The second priority is anti-inflammatory nutrition, targeting the gut-lung axis we discussed earlier. The goal is twofold: reduce inflammatory load and provide substrates that support lung repair. The Mediterranean diet has the strongest accumulated evidence for respiratory benefits. Practically, this means consuming fatty fish like salmon, sardines, or mackerel 2 to 3 times per week for omega-3s, which compete with omega-6 fatty acids to lower pro-inflammatory cytokines. Include legumes like lentils, chickpeas, and beans 4 to 5 times per week for fermentable fiber, which feeds gut bacteria producing short-chain fatty acids that reduce lung inflammation. Use extra virgin olive oil instead of refined vegetable oils. Eat berries and citrus for flavonoids, and include dark leafy greens for magnesium and folate. Minimize processed meats, ultra-processed foods, high sugar intake, and overly large meals, which worsen diaphragm function and inflammation. The third priority is adequate protein intake to combat sarcopenia, the accelerated muscle loss seen in 30 to 60% of severe COPD patients. Respiratory muscles are skeletal muscles, and their strength is critical for breathing. Aim for 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, ideally distributed across 4 to 5 smaller meals. Complete protein sources: eggs, chicken, fish, Greek yogurt, legumes combined with grains ensure muscles, including the diaphragm, remain strong. If you have chronic kidney disease, adjust protein targets with your physician, as high intake may overload damaged kidneys. Fourth, consider supplements with proven efficacy. N-acetylcysteine, or NAC, is the precursor to glutathione, the lung's primary antioxidant, which naturally declines after 50. Meta-analyses show NAC reduces exacerbations and improves symptoms, particularly in severe disease, at 600 milligrams once or twice daily, depending on condition. Precautions are necessary for people on warfarin or nitroglycerin due to interactions. Vitamin D supplementation is essential for patients with deficiency 2,5, hydroxyvitamin D levels below 20 mg/ml warrant, 2,000 to 4,000 IU daily under physician supervision. Magnesium in citrate or glycinate form, 200 to 400 milligrams daily, can support bronchodilation, but should be avoided in renal insufficiency. Finally, sleep evaluation is critical. Between 20 and 30% of COPD patients have overlap syndrome, coexisting sleep apnea, which worsens prognosis. Nocturnal hypoxemia accelerates cardiovascular damage and reduces exercise tolerance. If you have snoring, daytime sleepiness, or morning headaches, consult your doctor for a sleep study. A properly calibrated CPAP can profoundly improve daytime energy and lung function. Now, let's address what this video is not. I need to be clear because your safety, your time, and your resources deserve honesty. The P63 positive progenitor cell transplant I described at the beginning, the one that showed actual regeneration of destroyed alveoli, is not currently available outside of certified clinical trials. No FDA-approved clinics in the United States, Europe, or elsewhere offer it as a standard therapy. The only legitimate access at this point is through registered studies. If you want to explore this option, the proper resource is clinicaltrials.gov, searching for terms like P63 and COPD or emphysema. Beware of clinics charging between $15,000 and $50,000 for stem cell therapies labeled as COPD treatments. Most of these are conventional mesenchymal stem cells, or MSCs, derived from bone marrow or adipose tissue. Multiple phase 2 clinical trials have consistently shown that MSCs have disappointing results for COPD. They do not rebuild lung tissue, and patients risk both their money and health. Worse, investing in these unproven therapies can lead patients to abandon interventions that actually work, like pulmonary rehab, nutrition, and lifestyle adjustments, because they've put all their hope into a treatment without evidence. The difference between conventional MSCs and P63 progenitor cells is fundamental. MSCs are foreign cells introduced into the lungs with the hope they will adapt and repair. P63 cells, on the other hand, are the lung's own resident progenitor cells, specifically evolved to repair alveolar tissue. This biological specificity likely explains why the Shanghai team's approach worked while other stem cell attempts failed. The therapy isn't magic, it's targeted, evidence-driven, and grounded in the organ's own biology. As for timing, here's a realistic perspective. The team in China behind the study has regulatory approval to proceed with phase 2 trials. Clinical availability in China could be a 3 to 5 year horizon. Access in Western countries may take longer, depending on regulatory pathways. This isn't something that will happen tomorrow, but it's not science fiction. It is actively moving through the pipeline. Knowing this timeline matters because it reframes what you can do today. If you have mild or moderate emphysema, this period between now and the potential availability of P63 therapy is critical. Preserving lung function now may position you to benefit most when this treatment becomes accessible. The Shanghai study showed the most striking improvements in patients with milder disease, including 2 who demonstrated complete lesion resolution on imaging. The time to act is not when lung function is nearly gone, it's now. Let me outline what to realistically expect with the protocol I described earlier. In the first 2 weeks of pulmonary rehabilitation and implementing breathing techniques, you may not see measurable changes in pulmonary function tests. That's normal. The earliest effects are subjective, a slight reduction in breathlessness during activities that previously exhausted you. If you've adopted anti-inflammatory nutrition, systemic markers like C-reactive protein begin to shift, and some patients notice better sleep quality due to reduced upper airway inflammation and optimized posture. By months 2 to 3, objective improvements become measurable. 6-minute walking distance increases, quality of life scores rise above clinically meaningful thresholds, and patients begin to feel the difference in daily activity tolerance. By months 4 to 6, those taking NAC as indicated may experience a reduction in exacerbation frequency. Sustained application of the full protocol pulmonary rehab, Mediterranean-style nutrition, vitamin D correction, NAC when appropriate, and sleep optimization, if apnea is present, can yield improvements that, in some cases, exceed what patients and their families anticipated. Importantly, these benefits occur even if the damaged tissue hasn't regenerated yet. The lungs that remain function more efficiently, inflammation is better controlled, and overall functional capacity improves independent of spirometry results. It's crucial to understand the paradigm shift this represents. For decades, patients were told emphysema was irreversible, nihilistic messages that led to resignation. People stopped exercising, abandoned healthy nutrition, and disengaged from proactive health management. The 2024 discovery doesn't solve everything, but it changes the conversation fundamentally. We no longer debate whether the human lung is capable of regeneration that is now demonstrated. The question has shifted to how much, in whom, and under what conditions regeneration can occur. That is an entirely different discussion. And the protocol I outlined isn't a bridge to a hypothetical future. It's based on solid, peer-reviewed evidence applicable today. Pulmonary rehabilitation, Mediterranean-style nutrition, correction of deficiencies, sleep management, all carry moderate to high levels of evidence under rigorous medical standards. This is the consolidation of decades of research that too many patients never receive, simply because the healthcare system often doesn't have time to explain it in depth. Understanding the timeline of improvements is essential for motivation and realistic expectations. When you begin the full protocol pulmonary rehabilitation, breathing exercises, anti-inflammatory nutrition, protein optimization, supplements, and sleep management, you start changing your lungs environment immediately, even if the structural damage remains. In the first 2 weeks, most patients notice a subtle shift. Everyday activities that previously left them gasping now feel slightly more manageable. This is the result of respiratory muscle training and optimized ventilatory mechanics working even before muscle strength peaks. Improvements in posture and reduced upper airway inflammation also contribute to better sleep, which itself enhances daytime energy and exercise tolerance. By the second and third months, objective measures catch up with perception. The 6-minute walking distance, a standard test of functional pulmonary capacity, shows measurable gains. Quality of life scores rise above the thresholds considered clinically meaningful. Patients report less fatigue, more stamina, and reduced breathlessness during tasks that previously forced frequent breaks. By months 4 to 6, if NAC supplementation is indicated, exacerbations may decrease, further stabilizing health. These improvements occur even without access to advanced cell therapies, illustrating the profound effect of systematic, evidence-based interventions. What's remarkable is how these improvements are achieved despite remaining structural damage. The lungs that are left function more efficiently, inflammation is controlled, and overall functional capacity increases. Pulmonary function tests may not immediately reflect these gains, but patients feel them in real-world activities. This is an important distinction. Symptom relief and functional improvement can occur independently of the metrics measured by spirometry. You can feel stronger, walk further, and breathe easier, even while the underlying anatomical damage remains. This period of stabilization and improvement is also your opportunity to prepare for future therapies. If P63 progenitor cell transplantation becomes widely available in the next 3 to 5 years, patients who have maintained or improved their lung function through rehabilitation and nutrition may be the ones most likely to benefit. Preserving functional alveoli, controlling inflammation, and maintaining respiratory muscle strength ensures that the lungs are in the best possible condition to respond to regenerative interventions when they arrive. The lesson here is clear. Acting now is not waiting, it's preparing. Another critical point is empowerment. Knowledge changes outcomes. For decades, emphysema patients were told to accept irreversible decline. That message led to disengagement, poor lifestyle habits, and rapid progression of disease. Now, with a combination of pulmonary rehab, dietary strategies, and targeted supplementation, patients can actively influence the trajectory of their condition. The sense of control this creates is not just psychological, it produces real physiological benefits, reducing inflammation, improving exercise capacity, and enhancing quality of life. You are no longer a passive observer in the progression of your disease. Every step you take, every session of supervised exercise, every meal rich in omega-3s and fermentable fiber, every night of improved sleep actively reshapes the inflammatory and mechanical environment of your lungs. By addressing chronic inflammation, supporting your endogenous antioxidant systems, optimizing respiratory mechanics, and nurturing gut-lung communication, you create the conditions for your lungs to operate more efficiently, even without cell therapy. You can literally slow or reverse some functional decline through consistent, evidence-based intervention. Finally, remember that the P63 discovery and ongoing research fundamentally shift the conversation about emphysema. The lung's capacity for regeneration is now demonstrated in humans, which redefines what is possible. While clinical applications are still years away, the science confirms that the tissue has innate repair mechanisms we can support today through lifestyle, rehabilitation, and nutrition. Acting on this knowledge is the bridge between current evidence-based care and the regenerative therapies of the near future. The key takeaway is simple: you have more agency over your emphysema than previously believed. Today, interventions grounded in solid research can improve your function, reduce symptoms, and stabilize your condition. Tomorrow, regenerative therapies may take those improvements further. The combination of immediate, actionable strategies and awareness of future possibilities is the most powerful approach a patient can take.